Baldur's Gate, The History of Shadowdale, Book 1. The Fall of Asmir, last Drow Marshal of the Twisted Tower. The Drow rule of Shadowdale lasted until the early 900s Dale Reckoning, when the increased human population in the area brought the elves in conflict with their now more numerous neighbors. The humans were the Dalesmen, who a millennium earlier had crossed the Dragon Reach and made peace with the elves of Myth Drana. Settling at the borders of the Great Woods, that was the elven home. The Drow soon found themselves under continual attack, and most of those who held overgrown settlements retreated back below. The last powerful Drow leader was Asmir, the Marshal of the Twisted Tower in its last Drow-held days. Asmir oversaw the last retreat of the Drow holdings in the face of a human uprising, and held Citadel against a year-long siege. With supplies and slaves brought up from the Underdark directly into the tower, the Drow could have conceivably held out forever. However, a human slave, family histories in the Dales indicate a number of possible individuals, poisoned a well in the tower, and the citadel was easily overrun. Asmir's body was not found among the dead, leading some to believe that he escaped back into the depths to rejoin his people. Noting the fact that he would have had to explain to his matriarch how he lost Shadowdale, it's much more likely that, should Asmir have survived, he went into voluntary exile, hiding from both human and Drow. Given that this occurred 400 only years ago, it is certainly possible that Asmir still lives. Book 2. Ashaba becomes First Lord of Shadowdale. Upon taking the Twisted Tower and removing the Drowish yoke from the people, the Dalesmen had fully established the Dale of Shadowdale, with its seat of power in the tower itself. Its first lord was a water wizard who had aided in the final attack, Ashaba, who was great in age when he ascended, and ruled peacefully for 40 years thereafter. It is said that Ashaba realized he was dying, and turned himself into water, merging with the river. Since that time, the river, the ford, and the Twisted Tower all bear his name. Before passing on, Ashaba chose one of his trusted lieutenants as the new Lord of Shadowdale. Presented to the people of the Dale, he was made the new Lord by acclamation. In an additional honor, the pendant worn by Ashaba was thereafter recognized as a symbol of the lordship in the Dale lands, and was possessed by each of the successive lords following. Book 3. Joadath and the Tyrist Massacre. The past 100 years have been an example of the best and the worst lords of Shadowdale. All have been non-native to the Dale lands, though all made the land their home. A century ago, the Lord of the Dales was one Joadath, a stiff-necked agnostic who denies the power of any god, good or evil, and used force to back up his beliefs. During this time, there was a great deal of religious persecution, including a massacre of Tyrists on Water's Knoll. Joadath was eventually killed by a beast of the nether plains summoned by parties unknown, which then proceeded to rampage through the Dales. The beast was killed, and Shadowdale rescued by the spellcasters Omri and Sylune. Omri was proclaimed Lord by acclamation. Book 4. Omri rules in peace. The longest period of peaceful rule was by Lord Omri and his wife Sylune, better known as the Witch of Shadowdale. They ruled over the community for 40 years, a period of extended peace with the neighboring dales, nations and the elven people. It was this very peace and power which made the Dale the target for attacks and sabotage for the Black Network, Zentharim. They sought, and still seek, to control the trade from the Moon Sea to the Sword Coast, and desired to make Shadowdale a vassal state of the Zenthal Keep. Lord Ormry's rule ended tragically when he was assassinated by Zenthish agents. Book 5. Jordan, the False Lord. Lord Ormry was assassinated by Zentharim agents, who in turn were captured and killed by the warrior Jordan. Jordan, with the pendant of Ashaba in hand, the symbol of the lordship in the Dales, proceeded to present himself as a new lord, and was so acclaimed by the people. It was unknown to the people that Jordan was also an agent of the Zentharim, and the entire proceeding had actually been a ruse. Jordan abandoned the Twisted Tower, instead established himself in Castle Krieg, east of Shadowdale. His court was soon overrun by agents of the Black Network. When the people eventually revolted, Zenthal Keep sent peace. Keeping forces to maintain Jordan's rule, Sylune, Lord Ormry's widow, now aware of the deception, but a firm pacifist, did her best to keep the Dale healthy and intact during Jordan's evil rule. Book 6. Kelban kills Jordan. Lord Jordan's rule of Shadowdale ended when he encountered Kelban Aronson, also called the Blackstaff. The story at that time was that Jordan accepted an invitation of Kelban to visit Waterdeep, and there took ill and died. In reality, Jordan ambushed Kelban as the maid was leaving Shadowdale, and the Blackstaff killed him. In either case, Kelban took hold of the pendant of Ashaba, the symbol of the lordship of the Dales, and returned to Waterdeep with it, promising to send a suitable candidate for lordship to the Dales. Jordan had ruled for 5 years, and without his advocacy, Castle Crag was abandoned, and the Zenthal Keep troops routed. Jordan's previously chosen successor was a Melvontan named Lyron. But without the pendant, this individual was considered a pretender to the throne. Book 7. Lords accepted by acclamation. This acclamation of the people has formed the basis for choosing the Lord of Shadowdale, since the routing of the evil Lord Jordan by Kelban Blackstaff. Usually, a predecessor will step down as opposed to dying in office, and his chosen successor will be approved by the populace at large. This system has its drawbacks, as will be shown below. But in general, it has served the independent, self-willed people of the Dale very well. They have avoided the, as Elminster would have said, generic lottery of which good bureaucracies and bad kingships are made. The symbol of the lordship is the pendant of Ashaba, a device owned by the original wizard and used to determine the rightful lord of the Dale. Book 8. The Time of No Lords. During the period when Kelban Blackstaff held the pendant of Ashaba, Sylune was the de facto ruler of Shadowdale, though these years were known as the Time of No Lords. Sylune and an adventuring company known as Main's Band were responsible for driving out the Zenthal Keep forces and keeping at bay the monsters in the area. The Twisted Tower, the traditional seat of leadership, remained uninhabited following its abandonment by the evil Lord Jordan. And neither Sylune nor the companions of Main's Band wished to assume the mantle of leader. With time, Main's band passed on to other lands and adventures. Book 9. Doused Sulwood becomes Lord of Shadowdale. 3 winters following his defeat of the evil Lord Jordan, Kelban Blackstaff found a suitable candidate to assume leadership of the Dales, or rather a group of candidates. They were the Knights of Mithranor, so named to show their interest in the elven territories and their connection with the elven people, and Kelban gave them the Pendant of Ashaba in return for services rendered to himself and to Shadowdale. Their leader, the ranger Florin Falconhand, refused the honor of the lordship. It was therefore passed to Doused Sulwood, who was made a new lord with the support of Florin and Sylune, and apparently also the secret support of Kelban as well. Doused reoccupied the Twisted Tower, driving out the last agents of the Black Network. He also reinstituted many of Ashaba's democratic ideals, including the Lord's Court, where all citizens may speak freely and air their grievances without threat of reprisal. Doused ruled for 5 years and proved to be a capable ruler, beloved by the people. The regular presence of the Knights of Mithranor did much to ensure the protection of the area, particularly against incursions by Lyran Nantha, the Pretender. Lyran was to have been Jordan's named replacement, but with the Zentharim routed, there was little validity to the claim. Book 10. Elminster moves to Shadowdale. It is of note that during the time that Doused Sulwood of the Knights of Mithranor assumed the role of Lords of Shadowdale, Elminster took up residence in the area, a semi-regular visitor up to that time. He took possession of a low, abandoned tower at the foot of the Old Skull, and declared himself to be officially in retirement. The nature of that retirement varies from active involvement in local affairs to long-term vacations on other planes. The natives of the Dale have come to the understanding that they cannot always count on the powerful mage being in residence in times of need and danger. But when he is present in these circumstances, his aid is usually given. Book 11. Doused chooses Mourn Grimm Amcathra to succeed him. Doused Sulwood, recommended to the position by Kelban Blackstaff, ruled Shadowdale as lord for 5 years. Seems like a millennium, he was oft known to have reported, and the tedium of court life and the lure of adventure eventually caused him to retire his position and rejoin the Knights of Mithranor in regular adventuring. He handed the Pendant of Ashaba on to one of the younger knights, a Watadavian noble named Mourn Grimm Amcathra. Mourn Grimm had been dispatched by Kelban from Waterdeep for other purposes, but Doused liked both the young man's straightforward honesty and his willingness to shoulder the burden of protecting the small community from myriad dangers. Time has proven this choice a wise one. Book 12. Shale and Mourngrim meet and marry. The implications of Kelban Blackstaff Orenson choosing the last 2 lords of Shadowdale were not lost on the Dale's more powerful neighbor to the south, Cormyr. An agent was sent northward to divine Mourngrim's true intentions and to guarantee the Dale's continued good relationship with the throne of the Purple Dragon. The agent was a rogue named Shale Rowanmantle, sent by Vangardahast. Though all paperwork on this matter has been curiously incinerated in Zizale, so all is hearsay and tale. Shale discovered more than she intended and fell in love with young Mourngrim. The 2 married and became the Lord and Lady of Shadowdale. Shale's loyalty is now to be her husband, and to the land they co-rule. This was probably not the intention of the Cormyrians. Book 13. Mourn Grimm's rule. Since being recommended to the position by the outgoing Lord Doust Salwood, Lord Mourngrim Amcathra's rule of Shadowdale has been less peaceful than he had hoped. The first battle of Shadowdale occurred in the year of the Prince, and involved Daleland forces routing those of the Lyran the Pretender. Lyran has made repeated attempts to gain the lordship, as was intended by the former Zentish puppet, Lord Jordan. While significant, this battle pales when compared to the larger battle fought on the same site between Bane-led Zental Keep forces and the Dales during the time of troubles. When the Battle of Shadowdale referred to without a number, it usually means this second battle. In addition, Mourngrim has had to deal with a large number of skirmishes, incursions, a possible invasion from below, explosions, and other sundry disasters. Mourngrim and Shale have one child, Scotty, who is now 9 winters old. By the customs of the area, he is not considered the heir apparent, and another suitable warrior or mage may take the reins of power of the small community. Most feel that Mourngrim will hold the pendant until his son has reached his maturity, then abdicate in young Scotty's favour once he takes his grown name. If this happens, it will be the first occasion of the Lordship of Shadowdale passing down through a family.